I'm Peyton Norris, and this is my audience.
1, 2,
3, 4, 5. The topic of whether or not sex ed should be taught in schools across the U.S. has sparked controversy for quite a few years. Many people in power think that anything sexual at all should not be taught to children. However, this has caused an influx in problems regarding sexual health, teen pregnancy, and sexual violence. A concerning statistic from Rachel Jan Faza at Harvard Political Review and the Sexuality and Information Council of the United States, only 14% of middle schools and 38% of high schools in the United States teach all of the sex ed classes recommended by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, or the CDC. The first graph I have is the high schools that teach all the recommended classes. 38% of high schools in the country teach all of the recommended classes by the CDC, and 62% of high schools do not teach all of the recommended classes. There are 19 topics that are recommended to be covered. In middle schools, only 14% of schools cover the necessary topics, and 86% do not cover these topics. The first reason why I believe that sexual education is necessary for students is that it can lead to a higher number of people who have good sexual health, especially young people. STDs, or sexually transmitted diseases, are a rising problem in the United States. They are a debilitating disease that nobody should have to live with. The CDC says that of the 26 million STD diagnoses in 2018, almost half of them were people of ages 15 to 24 years old, which is very young. Those are the kids that should be learning about STDs in school so they can be prevented from spreading. Since these kids aren't learning about STDs at all, they are getting STDs because they don't know how to prevent from getting them. Another topic that needs to be discussed is HIV/AIDS. Although there are not nearly as many cases as there were about 30 years ago, AIDS and HIV is still a problem in this country. According to the CDC, there were about 32,100 cases of HIV amongst young men aged 16 to 24 in 2021. This might not seem like a big number, but this disease is completely preventable and treatable if it is addressed. If there is proper education surrounding this disease, less and less people would start to get it. The second reason why I think that sex ed can help people is that sex ed can help students and young people make more informed decisions based on fact about their relationships and sex. It has been proven in many ways that many kids do not know much, if anything at all, about how their own body works. These kids that don't have school to teach them or a parent to teach them have started to turn to TikTok. According to Julia Moore at the Lilly, teens and young adults have been using TikTok as a resource to learn sex ed since their school never taught them. They're going on TikTok and asking about things such as pregnancy, doctor appointments, birth control, STDs, questions like, can this get me pregnant? Can I get an STD from this? These kids aren't learning what can hurt them or harm them. The quote by Julia Moore at the Lilly, "The need for answers comes in large part from the failures of sex education curriculums. 30 U.S. states and the District of Columbia require sex ed to be taught in public schools, and 22 states require it to be medically accurate. The other states are only required to teach about abstinence." This quote showcases that more than half of the country's students are not being taught the information that they need to know. Also, some kids do not have platforms like TikTok or Instagram to learn about these things, and if their parents don't teach them, and if school doesn't teach them, and they don't have access to other platforms, there is no way that they're going to learn this information about how their own body works. They will go out into the world and get STDs or HIV or AIDS Teaching sex ed can help young people protect themselves from bad relationships or bad things that could happen if you're not safe. The article, Effectiveness of Sex Education in Adolescence, speaks on the fact that having sexual education can be really beneficial in teaching young people what respect is. Of course, when you're in a relationship, it is essential that your partner is respectful to you, but it is also essential that you are respectful towards your partner. If kids are not taught what a healthy relationship looks like, they may think that a manipulative relationship is what they should be in. If kids are to not be manipulated by their partner or their significant other, they need to learn about how to put themselves in a safe place. Also, if kids are taught about what sex or intercourse really is, they can make accurate decisions based on fact, whether or not they want to participate. Some kids don't really know what sex is, and they just want to do it because everybody else is. However, if kids are taught about the risks that are associated with sex, then they might actually be discouraged from doing it because they don't want to get pregnant, they don't want to get an STD. Some people do say that sex ed can lead students to have sex, but I do not believe that this is the case. Teaching about sex, like I said, can lead students to not participate in anything sexual at all because of the risks involved. Of course, you don't want to scare kids into not having sex, but being informed might sway them in the opposite direction. It is a common opinion that kids are going to have sex anyway, but if they are taught how to safely do it, there is a lower chance for disease and teen pregnancy. Roland Martin at CNN states that too many parents live in denial about their children having sex. Parents think that their kids are just saints and they're not doing anything sexual at all, but this is not the case. However, if kids are going to have sex, they need to be able to do it in a way that doesn't harm them or others around them. These safety measures should be exposed to children as soon as they hit puberty to avoid disease and pregnancy. The controversial topic on whether or not sex ed or extensive sex ed should be taught in schools has been a prominent topic of conversation across the nation. Although some may disagree, I think that it is crucial that youth get the education they need about how their body works. Through this education, students can be more healthy sexually and make good, informed decisions about relationships and sex. This subject is very taboo, and some find it awkward to speak about. However, in the words of Peter Dewitt at Education Weekly, whether it makes us uncomfortable or not, we can never escape the topic. Thank you. And here's my audience. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.